We all carry secrets, but some of them are too heavy to keep. Stay with me to explore this one together.
I'm recording this because I need to process what happened. And honestly, I think my story might help someone else who's going through something similar. 3 weeks ago, my entire understanding of my family and my childhood was shattered by a single notification on my phone. I'm still shaking when I think about it. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting in my car outside Target, about to run in for groceries, when my phone buzzed with a group chat notification. The chat was called Operation Wellness, and I saw my mom had just posted a message. I didn't remember joining any chat with that name, so I opened it, confused, thinking maybe it was about my dad's recent surgery or something medical related to the family. The message from my mom read, "Saw her at lunch today. She's definitely gained more weight. We need to move the Thanksgiving intervention up. That's our best chance with everyone together." Her. She. They were talking about me. I scrolled up with trembling hands, and what I found made my stomach drop. The chat had 37 members. My parents, my 3 siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, even my grandmother, and the messages went back 8 months. 8 entire months of my family discussing my body, my weight, my eating habits, my clothes, my social media posts. 8 months of them coordinating how to fix me, change me, save me from myself, and I'd had no idea any of this existed. I sat in that parking lot for over 2 hours reading every single message. My phone battery drained from 70% to 15% as I compulsively scrolled through this archive of betrayal. The sun moved across the sky. People walked past my car, and I just sat there, reading about myself through the eyes of people who claimed to love me, but who'd turned me into a project, a problem to be solved, a body that needed managing. My sister Emily had posted a photo of me from my birthday dinner back in March. I remembered that night so clearly. I'd worn a green wrap dress that made me feel beautiful, genuinely confident for once. In the group chat, Emily had written, "Look how tight that dress is. You can see it in her arms too. I'm seriously worried about her health now. Mom, we can't wait any longer." My cousin Jennifer had replied, "It's so sad. She used to be so pretty." Used to be. Past tense. My dad, who'd told me I looked lovely that night, had written in this chat, "We need to be strategic about this. If we come on too strong, she'll shut down completely. I think we approach it from the health angle, not appearance. Maybe get her doctor involved somehow." My brother had shared a screenshot from my Instagram, a photo from a beach day where I'd actually felt brave enough to post myself in a swimsuit. He'd written, "This is really concerning. She's clearly in complete denial about how much weight she's gained. Should we talk to her friends? Do they enable this?" My Aunt Karen had responded, "Her friends are probably all overweight too. Fat people enable each other. That's the core problem here." These weren't casual comments or passing observations. These were detailed strategy sessions about how to approach me, what words to use, what tactics would work best. There were actual assignments distributed like this was a military operation. My uncle was tasked with casually mentioning his new diet at the next family gathering. My cousin Rachel was supposed to send me health articles, disguised as interesting reads. My mother had volunteered to schedule an innocent coffee date where she could express her concerns one-on-one in a controlled setting. Every family interaction I'd had for 8 months was suddenly recontextualized. Every seemingly spontaneous conversation about health had been coordinated in advance. Every comment that felt slightly off had been carefully workshopped in this group chat. Nothing had been real. Nothing had been genuine. I'd been performing my life while an audience of 37 people watched, critiqued, and planned their next move. The worst part was realizing how I'd been added to this chat. My mom had created it, and she must have accidentally added me when she meant to add my cousin Melissa. Our names both start with M in her contacts, and we have similar profile pictures. One simple mistake, one technological slip, and suddenly I had access to the truth about how my family really saw me. Let me walk you through some specific messages, because I need you to understand the scope of this. This wasn't just family members being occasionally thoughtless. This was systematic and organized. The earliest message was from my mother 8 months ago, right after I'd visited home for a weekend. She'd written about creating this group to get everyone on the same page, about my situation, about how if they coordinated their approach and presented a united front, they could help me see how serious this was and make better choices. My situation, better choices. All code for, my daughter's body is wrong and we're going to fix it. Everyone had responded immediately with support and agreement. My Aunt Karen wrote a long message about her own weight struggles in her 30s and how she wished someone had loved her enough to intervene. My brother offered to research nutritionists and trainers. My sister suggested creating a shared calendar to track family events where they could implement their strategies, and they actually did it. They created a shared calendar that served as their intervention schedule. I found detailed planning notes for Easter dinner. My mother had written out a complete script for my father, including specific phrases he needed to use. He was supposed to say, "We're worried about you," at least 3 times. My sister was assigned to mention her new gym membership and offered to take me as her guest. My brother was supposed to talk about his recent physical and how his doctor warned him about weight and health as you get older. All of this was designed to prime me for what they called the main conversation. The main conversation was supposed to happen after dinner, when my dad would pull me aside privately. Except it wouldn't be private because my mom would coincidentally walk in halfway through to provide backup. They'd written out contingency plans for my different possible reactions. If I got defensive, emphasize love. If I cried, provide comfort. If I got angry and tried to leave, my brother was positioned near the door to casually intercept and de-escalate. Reading this felt like discovering I'd been living in a simulation, that Easter had been awful for me, but I couldn't articulate why at the time. Now I understood. I'd been manipulated, stage managed through an entire holiday. For my birthday, the group chat exploded with messages about the restaurant choice. My sister wanted somewhere with healthy options, so they could model good choices. My cousin worried about whether I'd order dessert, and if someone should say something. My mother actually wrote that if I ordered something really unhealthy, maybe my dad should ask if I was sure I wanted that. In a loving way, of course. They discussed my clothing constantly. After I posted wedding photos, my aunt wrote that those dress styles weren't flattering for my body type, and someone needed to tell me certain cuts just don't work on larger frames. That it was actually cruel to let me think I looked good when I didn't. My cousin agreed, saying real family tells you the truth even when it's hard. They analyzed my social media obsessively. My brother expressed concern that I was posting too many photos of myself, being too confident for someone my size, that I needed to understand how I was coming across. My sister worried my posts might influence younger cousins to think being overweight was acceptable. They shared articles with each other about obesity and health, weight loss transformations, before and after photos. They discussed which articles to send me directly and which to just reference casually in conversation. They literally created a shared document of conversation starters they could all draw from. The photos were the most violating part. They'd been screenshotting and sharing photos of me for months. Pictures from my social media, pictures taken secretly at family events, even photos my mother took without my knowledge when I visited home. One photo showed me reaching for seconds at Sunday dinner with my mother's caption, "This is what we're dealing with." Zero portion control. There was a picture someone took of me walking away at a family picnic. My cousin commented, "You can really see it from this angle. We need to act soon." My aunt shared a photo from 5 years ago next to a recent one with the caption, "The difference is shocking. This is absolutely a health crisis." They'd analyzed my grocery purchases after my mother spotted me at the store and followed me through the aisles, then reported what I'd bought. They pieced together my exercise habits from social media check-ins. They speculated about my dating life, with multiple people suggesting my weight was preventing me from finding a relationship. Every cruel observation, every invasive plan, Every violation was wrapped in language about love and concern and help. They genuinely believed they were being good family members. They'd convinced themselves their obsession with my body was about health rather than their own discomfort and need for control. Sitting in that car, reading those messages, memories started flooding back with new context. This group chat wasn't the beginning of anything. It was just the first time I'd seen the mechanism behind what had been happening my entire life. I remembered being 10 and my mother taking me for a special doctor's appointment that turned out to be about my weight. I remembered being 12 and my grandmother pulling me aside at Thanksgiving to say I should skip dessert while I watched my cousins eat pie. I remembered being 14 and my sister offering to share clothes, then making a show of how nothing fit me right, how we needed to find more flattering options for my body type. I remembered being 16 and receiving a gym membership for my birthday when I'd asked for art supplies. My parents presented it as an exciting gift, an investment in my health. Now I wondered if there'd been a family discussion beforehand, everyone agreeing that what I really needed was the message that my body required fixing. I remembered being 19, home from college, and my aunt asking if I'd gained the freshman 15. She'd said it jokingly, but her eyes assessed my body up and down. Then she'd talked about her friend's daughter who gained weight in college and could never lose it, who was now in her 30s, still struggling. The implication was clear. This was a slippery slope. Every memory came with new understanding. Nothing had been spontaneous. They'd discussed it beforehand, coordinated, planned. I'd spent 28 years being managed by a committee I didn't know existed, and the impact was devastating. I'd developed an eating disorder in college that I'd never told my family about. How could I? They were the ones who created it. The voice in my head saying I was too much, too big, too wrong, that was their voice. The shame about eating in public, about my body taking up space, that was their shame imposed on me. I'd tried every diet by age 25. I'd lost and regained weight multiple times. Each time I gained it back, family concern ramped up. Each time I lost weight, they praised me effusively, confirming that their love was conditional on my body size. The eating disorder started with restriction in college. I counted every calorie obsessively, terrified of becoming what my family implied I was becoming. I exercised compulsively, sometimes twice daily, until my roommate expressed concern. But I couldn't stop because stopping meant gaining weight, which meant proving my family right. Then, restriction morphed into binging. I'd restrict all day and eat uncontrollably at night, alone, consumed by shame. I'd hide food and throw away evidence. I'd spend hours hating myself for my lack of control, my weakness, my fundamental wrongness. By graduation, I was trapped in a cycle I couldn't escape. Restrict, binge, shame, repeat. My weight fluctuated wildly. My mental health deteriorated. I withdrew from friends because I couldn't handle anxiety around food. I developed elaborate rules about what I could eat and when. I weighed myself multiple times daily, and that number determined my worth. I'd been in therapy on and off for years but never connected my eating disorder to my family. I'd somehow maintained this separation where their concern was legitimate and my disordered behavior was my problem. I'd bought their narrative that they were helping and I was being difficult and defensive. Now I saw the truth. They'd created this. They'd planted seeds and watered them throughout my life. They'd created an environment where an eating disorder was almost inevitable. And they'd continued their campaign even as I struggled, never considering they might be part of the problem. After reading everything, I had to decide what to do. Part of me wanted to pretend I'd never seen it. Just leave the chat quietly and move on. That felt safer. I'd spent my life avoiding waves in my family, being accommodating and easy. But another part, growing stronger as I processed everything, knew silence wasn't an option. This wasn't a misunderstanding I could address privately. This was systematic abuse involving dozens of people over months. This was coordinated manipulation. This was a violation so profound that letting it continue would be a betrayal of myself. I spent an entire night screenshotting every message, Every cruel observation, planned intervention, shared photo, strategy session, privacy violation. I organized them chronologically and created a document telling the complete story. Then I wrote a message to accompany it. I wrote and rewrote it probably 30 times. I wanted clarity without unnecessary cruelty. I wanted to name what happened without descending into rage. Though rage was what I felt, I explained. I'd been added accidentally. I'd read everything. I was including screenshots so everyone could see the full scope. I named it clearly: coordinated surveillance, manipulation, and psychological abuse disguised as family concern. I detailed the impact: the eating disorder I'd struggled with for years, created and reinforced by exactly this treatment. Their obsession with my body had nothing to do with health and everything to do with their fat phobia and need for control. Not once in 8 months had anyone suggested actually talking to me, asking how I felt or considering my autonomy as an adult. I told them they'd violated every boundary of privacy and respect. Sharing photos without consent, discussing my body in degrading terms, planning ambushes, all of this was abusive regardless of intention. I made clear that intention doesn't erase impact. They could genuinely believe they were helping and still cause profound harm. Love doesn't justify control and concern doesn't excuse cruelty. I told them I was done. Done with ambush events. Done with conversations centering my weight. Done being treated like a project instead of a person. Done shrinking myself for their comfort. I was taking extended time away from family contact, and would reach out if and when I was ready for relationships that required fundamental changes. Then I sent it to the group chat, and individually to each person. I wanted everyone to face what they'd participated in. Then I turned off my phone for 36 hours. When I turned it back on, I had over 200 notifications. The group chat had exploded. My voicemail was full. There were texts, emails, even a LinkedIn message, which would have been funny if it weren't desperate. My mother's first response was about how I'd violated their privacy by screenshotting private conversations, that I'd betrayed the family's trust. My father wrote that I was taking everything out of context, that everything was from genuine love and concern, that I was twisting their words into something ugly. My sister sent a long message calling me dramatic and oversensitive, saying I was destroying the family over nothing, that everyone walks on eggshells around me because I'm so defensive about weight, proving why they needed to discuss things privately. My brother focused on the eating disorder revelation, saying he was sorry I'd struggled but I'd never told them. So how could they have known? Completely ignoring that their behavior might have created it. But 2 people surprised me. My cousin Melissa, whose name next to mine had caused this revelation, apologized. She'd felt uncomfortable from the beginning, but hadn't known how to speak up. She thanked me for being brave. My brother's wife Sarah also apologized. She'd been horrified when added to the chat after marrying into the family. She'd tried talking to my brother privately, but he'd shut her down. She acknowledged her silence was wrong. These responses meant everything. They confirmed I wasn't crazy. What I'd identified as abusive actually was. My reaction wasn't oversensitivity. 2 people looked at the same evidence and saw what I saw. Coordinated cruelty disguised as love. But most responses were defensive, dismissive, or hostile. Multiple family members accused me of tearing the family apart. Several said I was making everything about me as usual. Some focused on the privacy violation of screenshots, as if that were the real crime. Others doubled down, insisting everything was justified because they were right about my health. Not a single immediate family member actually apologized. Not one acknowledged their behavior was harmful. The closest was my father saying he was sorry I'd been hurt. Sorry for my reaction, not their actions. That told me everything about whether reconciliation was possible. It's been 3 weeks now. 3 weeks of silence from people who surrounded me my entire life. 3 weeks of adjusting to reality without the background noise of family obligation, judgment, and concern. 3 weeks of learning who I am without their voices in my head. I started intensive therapy the week after sending those screenshots. I specifically found a therapist specializing in eating disorders and family trauma. I needed someone who could help untangle the complex knot of abuse, disordered eating, body image, and family dynamics that had defined my life. In our first session, I brought printed screenshots. I needed my therapist to see the evidence, to validate I wasn't overreacting or being too sensitive, all the things my family accused me of. She looked through them carefully, then said something I'll never forget. This is one of the clearest examples of coordinated psychological abuse I've seen. The fact they disguised it as concern makes it more insidious, not less harmful. Your response was appropriate and healthy. Setting boundaries is essential for your recovery. I cried in relief. Someone with professional expertise looked at what my family dismissed and saw it for what it was. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't oversensitive. I had been abused, systematically and intentionally, by people who claimed to love me. We meet 3 times weekly now. We're addressing the eating disorder directly. The restriction, binging, compulsive exercise, food rules, body checking. We're working on developing a relationship with food based on nourishment and pleasure, rather than control and shame. We're challenging distorted thoughts about my body that my family reinforced for decades. We're also doing deeper work on family systems and trauma. My therapist helped me understand that families often select one person to be the identified patient. The problem, the one needing fixing. That person becomes the repository for collective anxiety and dysfunction. By focusing on fixing me, my family didn't have to examine their own issues, fears, fat phobia, and control problems. She helped me see my body was never the problem. The problem was a family system requiring a scapegoat, needing someone to manage, unable to tolerate difference or deviation from their narrow definition of acceptability. I just got cast in that role. We've talked extensively about body autonomy, about the radical idea that my body belongs to me alone, that I'm the only person who decides what I eat, how I move, what I wear, how I exist in physical space, that other people's opinions about my body, even family members claiming concern, are irrelevant to my own relationship with myself. This has been incredibly difficult to internalize. I spent 28 years believing my family's input was not only welcome, but necessary, that their concern was love, and criticism was care. Reframing their behavior as violation, rather than love, requires rewiring fundamental beliefs about what love actually is. I'm also working with a nutritionist, specializing in eating disorder recovery and health at every size principles. She's helping me learn intuitive eating, listening to my body's signals about hunger, fullness, and satisfaction. She's teaching me that health is multifaceted, and weight isn't the primary determinant diet culture claims. She's helping me understand I can pursue health and well-being in ways that don't center weight loss or body change. This work is hard. Some days I feel strong and certain about cutting contact. Other days I'm overwhelmed with grief, loneliness, and doubt. I miss them, even though they hurt me. I miss the idea of family, of belonging, of having people on your side. I miss holidays and traditions and familiar comfort. But then I remember what those gatherings actually felt like. Constant anxiety about what I ate and who was watching. Careful portion monitoring to avoid judgment. Bracing for comments disguised as concern. Exhaustion from being perpetually on guard. Shame permeating every interaction. I realize I don't miss that. I miss what I wished my family could be, not what they were. I'm building chosen family now. Melissa and I have gotten closer. She's dealt with her own family trauma and understands the complicated grief of estrangement. Sarah has reached out several times for coffee. She's navigating a difficult position. Still married to my brother but trying to maintain a relationship with me. I'm grateful even though it's complicated. I've reconnected with friends I'd drifted from during the worst eating disorder years. I'd isolated myself, consumed by shame and anxiety. Now I'm slowly letting people in, learning to be vulnerable, to talk about what happened, to ask for support, and I'm working on my relationship with my body. This is perhaps the hardest part. Decades of messaging don't disappear overnight. I still have days where I look in the mirror and hear my family's voices instead of my own. Days where I catch myself calculating calories, or criticizing my appearance, or wishing I were smaller. But I'm also having moments, increasingly frequent moments, where I feel something different. Where I appreciate my body for what it can do rather than how it looks. Where I eat something delicious without immediate shame. Where I wear something I feel good in without questioning if it's flattering for my body type. Where I exist in space without apologizing for taking up room. Last week I went to the beach. I wore a swimsuit without hiding under a cover-up or positioning myself strategically. I just existed at the beach like a normal person. It was terrifying and liberating simultaneously. No one stared. No one commented. The world didn't end. I swam and read and felt sun on my skin. Afterward, I thought about how my family would have responded to a photo from that day. The analysis, concern, criticism disguised as care, and I realized their voices in my head were getting quieter. Not gone. Maybe not ever, but quieter. Recovery isn't linear. There are good days and days that are both moments of clarity and moments of doubt. Times when I feel strong in my decision to protect myself, and times when I wonder if I'm being too harsh. But I keep returning to one truth. I deserve to exist in my body without abuse. I deserve to eat without surveillance. I deserve to live without being someone's project. I deserve autonomy over my physical being. These aren't radical demands. They're basic human rights. The fact that my family couldn't give me those things, despite their protestations of love, tells me everything I need to know. Love that requires you to be different isn't love. Concern that violates your autonomy isn't concern. Help that harms you isn't help. I'm learning what real love looks like. It looks like my therapist creating space for my healing without judgment. It looks like my nutritionist teaching me to trust my body again. It looks like friends who see me as a whole person, not a body to be managed. It looks like chosen family who respect my boundaries and celebrate my existence, exactly as I am. I'm learning that I can be healthy and whole in this body, right now, without changing a single thing to please anyone else. That my worth isn't determined by a number on a scale or my family's approval or society's narrow standards. That I get to define what health and happiness mean for me. I'm reclaiming my relationship with food, with movement, with my body, with myself. It's slow, and messy, and painful, and beautiful. Some days I feel like I'm starting from scratch, learning basic things about how to exist without constant surveillance and criticism. Other days I feel stronger than I've ever been, more connected to myself, more certain about who I am and what I deserve. What my family did to me was abuse. Coordinated, systematic, psychological abuse. And I have the group chat to prove it. But more importantly, I have my own story, my own truth, my own path forward. They don't get to write my narrative anymore. I do. If you're listening to this and recognizing your own family in my story, I want you to know you're not alone. You're not crazy. You're not too sensitive. If your family treats your body like community property, if they coordinate concerns about you behind your back, if their love feels conditional on how you look, that's not okay. That's not love. That's control. You deserve autonomy. You deserve respect. You deserve to exist in your body without surveillance or criticism or coordinated interventions. You deserve peace. And, if claiming that peace means setting boundaries with family, even cutting contact entirely, that's okay too. That's not selfish. That's survival. That's choosing yourself when the people who should have chosen you first decided your body was more important than your humanity. I'm still healing. I'm still learning. I'm still figuring out who I am without their voices drowning out my own. But for the first time in my life, I'm doing it on my terms. My duality, my rules, my life. And that's worth everything.